Hey guys, thanks for tuning into another episode. We have got a cracker of a show today, probably one of my favorite topics to talk about. We are basically going to talk about diets, really simply put, but meal plans and kind of what things work, what things don't work, and kind of how to filter through all the bullshit that's out there, which is obviously the name of my podcast, but really getting down to the nitty-gritty of why these things actually fail and going into a few more specifics of that.
Welcome to the Breakthrough the Bullshit podcast. I am your host, Alice Round. I am pumped to have you here. We are going to really strip back all of the bullshit surrounding nutrition, training, bad diets, everything in the industry, so that we can give you education to get the best possible results. So sit back, enjoy the ride, and let's go through all this bullshit.
All right, so when we think of the word diet, first up, you're thinking of it as a short-term solution. So that's where one of our problems lies, in the fact that a diet is seen as being from a period of time. So whether that be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is, you're seeing it mentally when you start as something that you're not going to be able to maintain for the rest of your life. So your goal might be, all right, well, I want to lose 5 kilos. I'm going to do this diet plan for 10 weeks, and that's going to, get me down to my 5 kilo drop or whatever it is. So the problem being with that is when you finish it, there's often nowhere to go. And then the problem being is that you tend to then gain weight back again, or the opposite, you stay on this same diet plan or you try to stay on it for the rest of your life. And what tends to happen is it's quite low calories. And after a while, your body actually starts gaining weight again slowly on that low caloric intake. And then as a result, you have to actually drop it even lower to be able to stay at your new maintenance. So obviously, as we've talked about before in past podcasts, if you haven't listen to the podcast on metabolism, I would go back and listen to that one. But that your metabolic rate will downregulate as you keep cutting your calories lower and lower and lower. Now, on the other side of that, as I said, you'll get weight gain if you can't stick to that meal plan for this extended period of time and there's no actual reverse diet process in place or anything kind of on the other side of your 8, 10, 12-week plan that you've been doing. So basically, then how do we lose weight whilst doing it in a way that you can obviously try to keep the majority of that weight off, if not down the line want to drop a little bit more weight. If say you're a competitor and you're extremely lean, how do you only maybe gain a couple of kilos maybe on your stage weight and stay quite lean year round? There's all different things in terms of where we want to be. Obviously, some people are completely okay with weight gain, say they're a competitor, they need to put on muscle mass. But just for the average person or anyone listening out there that maybe has done a diet for 8, 10, 12 weeks and they're feeling really good about where they are now in the physical sense, but in the mental sense, they're not really sure where to go or confused about, well, what do I do now? Like, I want to stay looking like this, so how do I kind of adjust my calories or adjust my plan to make sure that I'm in a good position? Now, first up, if you're macro tracking, you are already on the right track. If you are someone following a meal plan, I really hope you're listening and I hope that this podcast speaks to you. But I'm going to talk to you about the numerous reasons why I feel that any diet that is a piece of paper given to you with some meal plan on it is probably going to be a hard one to follow. I'm not saying that it won't work. I'm just saying it's going to be a lot harder in terms of sticking to that plan than what it may be following a more flexible dieting approach for a lot of people. I'm very generalizing this because there are some people that I've witnessed as a coach from talking to people that actually are much more compliant when they follow a meal plan. Whereas I would say for 80 to 90% of the clientele I work with and that I've personally experienced, I would say they work better with a more flexible dieting approach. So the reason that these sort of meal plans often fail, and from what I've seen in the past, is that how can you be social? How can you have a life if you have to stick to your meal plan? So if you're a busy person, let's say you're a business person and you have business lunches on several days of the week and you have business breakfasts you have to go to, you've got a family, you're a mum, you've got to have dinner at home with your family without you mum eating her diet food. How do you actually then structure any form of a meal plan into your life? It's just not going to work. And this is the problem, and this is where people then put so much pressure on themselves to be perfect, and they feel like they've failed every time they haven't stuck to their meal plan. So it's this constant cycle of like doing really well for a couple of days, having a social event, not being able to stick to their meal plan, then feeling guilty, then feeling like they've failed, and then often that can even lead into binge eating and other issues down the line, or just completely stopping because they're like, well, I've stuffed it up now, I may as well just end it now. So that's where I feel like meal plans really fail people. They don't really take into account your lifestyle at all. They don't take into account whether 3 meals a day suits you better or 5 meals a day suits you better, because, you know, studies have shown that anywhere in the 3 to 5 range is optimal in terms of meals a day, but no one's really checking that often when they're writing up a meal plan for someone, or if you're buying some pre-done plan over the internet. It's not going to factor in the fact that maybe you work night shift and that your meals are going to be slightly different when you're on a night shift compared to a morning shift. All of these plans that are, especially generic plans, which is what I'm really against, cause more damage than I would say what they do good. And the end result is people waste their money. So they've spent a few $100 on some meal plan because it's reasonably cheap, probably the same plan that another 100,000 people are using, and maybe 1% out of that whole bunch gets a result. And then these companies post that 1%. So they post the people that had some success, that had some results, because again, it's going to work for some people. But you've got this 95% or whatever, even more, that it isn't working for. They're not showing those results. So I think people need to understand that when you're looking at a diet, make sure that you're looking at not only the results it's getting in the short term, but also what's happening in the long term. And I think that's a really important one, because at the end of the day, a diet is only as good as the duration that it can be held out for. So what I mean by that is, if you can only stick to, say, your meal plan for 4 or 6 weeks before you really just like, you know, are craving a burger or something, and you don't have, say, free meals, or I hate the word, but cheat meals or anything like that in there, and you're just not able to stick to it, then is that the diet that you should be on? Probably not. You want to find something that's more of a lifestyle approach, more of something that you can factor into your daily regime. And if you've got a craving or a feeling for something, or you're out and you're being social and you want to have a couple of, you know, a slice of pizza or whatever it is, you should be able to factor that in within reason. And that's, again, like I said, why meal plans fail. And there's no specific foods that are fat burning foods. There's no specific foods that elicit certain responses in your body. It comes down to caloric intake, caloric output, as well as, of course, micronutrients and fiber and certain variables. And I do believe that people get better results overall eating more whole foods than more processed foods. But that's purely usually more from a health point of view. The fact that they'll generally train better, sleep better, have better energy, better mood than if, say, they're eating a very processed diet. I don't believe it's the actual caloric intake, because even if the intakes are very similar, they're probably going to get, you know, this varied result more in a health standpoint. So what I'm trying to say is, like I said, the length that you can sustain a diet for determines how good it is. So if you're following a more flexible dieting approach, that's something that you can do year round. And I'm not saying you would have to be as strict with tracking year round. You might have points, like for my lifestyle clients, for example. Let's look at the year over 12-month period. Now, for the average female, you know, we want to look good in a bikini for summer. So that might be a case with my clients, even if they're just, you know, an average lifestyle client, where they go, look, cool, I want to look good in a bikini from November to February. And we're going to go, sweet, okay, well, that's our period where maybe we're going to go a little bit more of a caloric deficit. We're going to kind of focus on a couple of months where we're maybe doing a little bit more exercise, a little bit more energy output. And then it might be from March to, you know, November, where we're bringing up the metabolism, we're slowly increasing calories, we're reducing the cardio a little bit in winter, and we're doing all these things so that every year when they come back to summer, they're often able to keep their intakes higher, because they've had this period over winter of slowly increasing their caloric intake. Now, I'm not talking about massive jumps. If this woman doesn't want to put on body fat, she wants to kind of maintain at that period, then that's going to be our goal. So that each time we get back around to summer, we're able to be getting a little bit leaner each summer. And I think that that's a really amazing way for lifestyle clients to look at it, and a really good approach if you're not a competitor or anything like that. But it's a similar approach to what I'd use with a competitor with like their off season to in season. you're probably just going to be a little bit more aggressive, maybe from a caloric standpoint of reverse dieting, and also for competitors having longer periods of reverse dieting because they're getting very lean and you really need to be looking after your metabolism. So it might be 1 year to 2 years off, whereas if you're someone that's just, doing a mini cut for summer or something like that, you might only need like a good, 3 to 6 months of bringing your calories up to get back to a pretty good position. So if you have a meal plan, it's obviously going to be a lot harder to follow in terms of that sense year round. And like I said before, the biggest problem with them is that they're just going to keep beating down your metabolism, unless you're buying a meal plan that has strategic like blocks in place in terms of caloric increases and decreases. And even if it does, even if you buy some plan that, on paper, I could literally write this out, it says diet period, here to here, 1,200 calories, maintenance period, here to here, 1,600 calories, bulking period, here to here, 2,000 calories. That would be very, very easy to just hand out and sell online, but it's something that ethically, A, I don't agree with, and B, the problem is that not everyone's the same. And some people could gain a lot of body fat as soon as they hit that 2,000 calorie point for some females. Other females, that might not even be enough for them to be at a maintenance point. So, your more naturally slim females, 2,000 calories is not really an excessively large amount for them, and 1,200 would be extremely low for them, whereas opposed to someone else, that might be, a reasonably decent intake that they feel quite full on. So anytime you're seeing any kind of generic plan, I would really, really be cautious. I feel like training is different, but nutrition, any form of macronutrients, caloric intake, all of that should always be based on certain variables. And what I mean by that is variables like your height, your weight, your age, your exercise, your activity levels, your energy output, your current energy intake, so they know kind of what metabolic position you're in. If you're just going on, some calculator site and typing in some macros, as long as it's getting some variables from you, it's probably not too bad. But if say you hire a coach, for example, and they don't ask you any of those questions, they don't ask you what you're currently eating, what you're currently training, what you've done in the past, I would be a little bit cautious because these are all the questions that they're going to be able to use to help determine what sort of caloric intake that you start on. Now, I don't believe your caloric intake that you start on is your be all and end all, because even as a coach, for me, when I get client forms that has all these details on them, I'm still kind of guessing that these are an estimate. Some people are spot on and they're already tracking, but for most people that come to me, they'll tell me what they're eating, and I've got to kind of go through it and systematically, estimate how much protein, carbs, fat, all of that they're intaking. And then also the fact that this may not be the same on a weekend. This may not be the same on a Saturday or a Sunday. And then I have to ask them things like, what do you normally do on the weekend? Do you drink? Do you do this? Do you do that? And again, some plan off the internet is not going to factor that in. So I guess the big thing that I'm trying to say over this podcast is look at finding a form of dieting or nutritional program that you're able to maintain year round, that you don't feel like you're constantly not able to eat foods, that it's restricting you that much in your day-to-day life. Now, I'm not saying that flexible dieting is easy. It definitely isn't. You need to be reasonably switched on in understanding how to track macros, in understanding where your calories are going to change throughout the year. But the best thing about it is, and I feel like the pros far outweigh the cons, is that you can fit in certain foods. So if you are out, like I said before, and even when you're dieting and you've still got a reasonable amount of calories and you want to have a slice of pizza, you can probably fit that into your calories and it not cause any detrimental effect on fat loss. And I think this is the big thing why, there's often so much heat between flexible dieters and quote unquote clean or bro eaters, is that, people are saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be eating those things anyway because you're meant to be healthy and you're meant to be blah, blah, blah and dieting and whatever it is. At the end of the day, we're all human, and I would much rather my clients have, something once a week or a couple of times a week that they really, really enjoy and that they're really happy with, and that's helping them be compliant, rather than them feeling so restricted that they're hating the process. And then as an end result, they generally might drop out after 4 or 6 weeks because the strategies in place are way too strict for them to actually stick to. It's like anything. If you're going to do something, it has to be reasonably enjoyable. And like I said, if you're dieting and your macronutrients are getting low, it's not going to be all fun and games. You're probably going to have to eat a lot cleaner foods just to simply, fill your macros with nutrient-dense food to keep you feeling full. But if you're, say, not dieting and in a maintenance, or you're trying to grow, you should be able to have so much more flexibility with your food choices, which makes the process so much easier. So I guess in wrapping up, be sure that when you are, looking at any sort of nutritional program, there's not too many bells and whistles. They're not overcomplicating it. They're not limiting you from certain food choices, certain social situations. That it's actually looking at your lifestyle, what your lifestyle entails, whether that mean you eat 3 meals a day or 5 meals a day, and that it's understanding about you rather than just saying, okay, this is the plan for you and that's going to work for everyone, because it's not going to be the case. So just be cautious about these things, and at the end of the day, find something that you see longevity in, that you see a long term, and the more you try to stop wasting your money on quick fixes and maybe focus on something that it might take you a bit more time to get your results, but those results are going to be ones that you can actually keep off, is really, really important. So I hope you enjoyed this quick little podcast. And again, if you have any topics that you would love for me to cover, I'd absolutely love to do that. I will be flying out to the Arnold Classic Australia on Tuesday. So if anyone is over there, I would love to catch up. Might organize some kind of little meetup. So shoot me an email or just jump on the Instagram post on this and just comment on it, Snapchat me. But it'd be really cool. We might organize a training session. A lot of my clients are over there. And yeah, it'll be a good time. I'm just floating around supporting competitors, and we'll just mainly be hanging out at the expo, and yeah, it's gonna be a good time. So I hope that I will see some of you at the Arnold Classic AU. Otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and I will chat to you all soon.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Break Through the Bullshit. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would love it if you could leave a review on iTunes. Let me know, comment what you'd love to see more of, and be sure you've also subscribed on YouTube and iTunes for updates. And if you'd like more info, then you can also add the Team Round Support Facebook page, which is available to access for all of you, and you just simply need to search for it on Facebook.